So first, I'd like to thank the panel for participating here today. And we just had a all too brief discussion with some of the larger players in this, including AT&T, who is arguably one of the largest players, and what they want to get out of it. And yet, when you're not AT&T, or you're servicing companies that aren't AT&T, the problems can be pretty daunting, right? And we just had the discussion about the diversity of payloads and how everybody has their own, which of course creates complexity, but also lets you get what you want. So given that little bit of an introduction, I'd like to begin with the simplest question of all, which is, who would like to start out saying, what challenges does a smaller operator have? Beyond the obvious of, I don't have buildings full of engineers, but that creates real problems. And would someone like to kick it off with an overview of things we might not have thought of?
Can you guys hear me okay?
I think it's turned off.
Can you hear me now? Yes. All right. Well, first of all, the light is really bright here.
Yes, it is.
And my name is David. I'm from Salesforce. Very happy to be here, along with our partners, ideaHelix and Enxoo. We're excited to be here because we want to be part of this LSO ecosystem and to be part of the ecosystem to scale. To Grant's question earlier in terms of, well, how do we scale, especially for smaller sellers? I think the smaller sellers have the same problem as the big sellers or big buyers, right? We are in a very complicated industry. But for us, I think for us to scale, there are two things needs to happen. One is about keeping things simple and to automate. That's one. The second thing is really about automating based on standards. And when we talk about automation, I think we do need to make sure that there's a platform for the sellers so that they can innovate very quickly, to give them a platform that they can truly innovate by giving them the ability to connect information from different systems, to be able to gain insights from those systems, and to be able to put all that and operationalize in a platform that they could sell and very quickly. So that's why from the Salesforce perspective, that's what we focus on. It's focus on the buying and the selling experience. And we're very happy that our partners are here so that they can also talk a little bit more about how to take advantage of the platform so that you can be agile and to be quick using the platform.
Ben, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I'll add a perspective from a small provider. The challenges that they have to deal with, really come down to economic and opportunity cost, in our opinion. The ability to go and act is not, filled with a sea of engineers in the back room. They have decisions to make, and ultimately, we're in this room together talking about interconnection, which is really a wholesale concept. And wholesale is not always the most resourced organization in the service provider community. So battling for that economic decision of should I or shouldn't I becomes a really hard thing, not just in AT&T, but in every service provider out there. And the thoughtfulness that we can have as a standards body around building adapters that connect, get out of the build everything one at a time process for every single relationship and into a provisioning thought process to really scale how automation impacts us. That's our mission. And frankly, I think it's a benefit to the big, the medium, and the small. Things that Salesforce has done in the ecosystem for many people in all kinds of different industries, making it provisionable. And I think if we, take away that one concept, we really move the ball forward. We've connected over 350 APIs. Unfortunately, most of them not MEF standard APIs. We would love them all to be, but at the end of the day, our customers can't build one at a time. They need a provisioning thought process.
Does anyone else like to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to add one point to this, is that obviously the entry cost for sellers is a major, major challenge. And obviously ideaHelix, as part of our, thought process and part of our innovation, we've been looking at, what are the business models or the engagement models that we could work with so that the entry costs for these suppliers or these vendors are going to be easy. And the challenge with all this for smaller vendors is that since they are now working within more of a value fabric rather than a value chain, right? And within this ecosystem, they really need to stand out and have all the capabilities that larger vendors also expect. And it's very difficult for them to get into that, or to get to that stage of maturity within this ecosystem that larger buyers are expecting. So I think so that's one of the key challenges that I see from a seller's perspective.
And I will maybe a little bit flip your question. I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as an opportunity for smaller players. I think on the previous panel, Michael made a comment that what we're effectively trying to do here, we're trying to wire business processes between buyers and sellers. And I think it's an opportunity for smaller guys because they are more agile, flexible to, really change the way they operate. Because by this LSO ecosystem, we are basically shifting the paradigm of how the transactions are happening in the ecosystem. So I see it as an opportunity to change the way you're doing business a little bit.
Oh, no doubt at all. I think the question is, how do we get there? What's the best way to get there? And just as an outsider looking in, one of the themes that came out of both the previous panel and seems to be emerging in this one is standardization and some degree of unity around what the services are, what the methods are, what the syntax and the semantics are is really important, balanced by the fact that that's not 100% reality in every company around the world today. And I'm looking at, many of you have as a service or platform models to work with companies. And it seems to me there's both a savings in the operational paradigm, but also maybe a savings in the experience paradigm, 100%. That once you've done it, you can do the second one more quickly. Call me wrong, call me right, tell me what you've done well in that area. But I thought it might be worth saying, where have you seen the benefits? And back to the same question we asked before, how could we as an industry do better and how could MEF do better?
I think that's spot on. When you think about a small seller, and we sell to many in this room, the largest providers of the world, down to a rural broadband provider that doesn't think about wholesale ecosystem very often, but they come on board in a platform experience, and their ability to go sell to every buyer that is already interfaced into the platform, it just scales because it becomes a provisioning process that takes about 7 seconds versus how long does it take to build a new API? In our world, could be weeks, could be months, in most of the people's reality out there. So changing that paradigm is a seller experience improvement, a buyer experience improvement, and the ability to get to transactions and move on to the next 100 and 200 and 300 that just need to be reality across the ecosystem.
Please.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about agility and simplicity is the key because we want the sellers to focus on selling. So as a service becomes really important because it takes away the effort of keeping the system running, so you can innovate by driving your business priorities into the system, and you don't really have to make sure that the system is actually running. So I think that's why the as a service is a key. And I think come naturally with the as a service is a set of platform and tooling that allows you to make changes very quickly. So we talk about API a lot, and I think API is one thing, but the ability, the platform to allow you to manage those APIs, to publish it, to test it is also very important as well.
And maybe to add to what David said, right? Especially that we are facing, challenges in the kind of talent pool in the, software development in general, right? Having a platform and a tooling where business people can easily, adopt, change, and configure. It's a huge advantage, and that's basically what we also love about the Salesforce ecosystem as a platform, potential platform to leverage.
One last thing that I'd just like to add from a Salesforce perspective. I was in Dreamforce a couple of weeks ago. We saw that the main theme for all this was AI being one of the key areas where Salesforce has been investing in. Now, for a smaller operator to start, getting the value of AI, etc., is not going to be possible unless it's on something that's non-proprietary, an industry standards-based platform as such. And I think, every small operator needs to start thinking of going onto a platform that's non-proprietary and that's basically being built from or built for the future and basically making sure that AI is going to be part of their overall strategy.
What about the MEF resources that are being, and MEF partner resources that are being made available? Everything from the, as they call it, the marketplace of LSO resources, where you've got one place to go for various things, to the test set that they have for you to iterate against, right, and on your own, to the certification that ought to ensure that things flow. Though probably a little more interrupt testing always comes even after certification. To what degree are these helpful? Are you using them? And what would you like to see next?
I think so. Obviously, the LSO APIs and the standardization is really helping us as ideaHelix to actually come out to the market with a platform where multi-tenanted vendors could actually come onto our platform and work interoperable between themselves. But one of the key things that I'd just like to address as part of this question is that all these things technically, and standardizations are very good stories, but in reality, everything has to be business-led. Unless you are looking at this from a business perspective and when there's money flowing through the application, you are not going to be successful with standardization. Unless you start looking at your PLM process, when do I reprice? When do I standardize my products? How does this fit into my existing CPQ process? How does it actually fit into my repricing process? These has to be business-led, and business needs to be convinced about the fact that these are the APIs that are going to make money for me. And the best thing that came out, the best message that came out for me, at least so far as an organization, is that all these APIs are product agnostic and technology agnostic, right? And that's where I think so you can actually really leverage the LSO APIs to a wider scale rather than just looking at it from a NAS perspective.
You asked about the resources, right, that are published at the marketplace, and for sure we are using them. When we are developing our solution for the API. By the way, if you wanna take a look, we're presenting it on the innovation station. So I mean the developer guides, the standards. But maybe something that I hear from some smaller sellers that I work with is some kind of maybe a little bit more practical, concrete business use cases. That is something that is still I believe a gap to address.
So it's still a little vague.
Yeah, a little
Okay.
little vague.
All right.
I'd just add, yes, I think the MEF organization and the MEF community are doing a fantastic job of putting together tools, educating, engaging, helps us accelerate the time to value, helps us learn and execute. I think where we need to focus on is taking the standards and education past payloads and structure to performance. The customer experience is ultimately what matters out there, and we see one of the biggest views out there in the ecosystem, and the scale and the performance vary massively I think the content as well. I mean, how many of you have APIs interacting together where your version of truth in Germany for an address is different than your partner's version of truth, and you guys don't have the tools to recognize, translate, and connect that? It creates a missed opportunity. And getting into those details that elevate our ability to get returns for providers and improve customer experience is what we should be focused on next.
And that actually leads into sort of a nice wrap-up question. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. In an ideal world, where would you like us to be going next, or what should our North Star be for how this environment is going to work? And I'm going to leave that intentionally open because there's probably 4 different perspectives.
I think something that Lorella pointed out on the previous panel, right? That right now that we have a adoption really rapidly ramping up, I see a little bit of a need to kind of stabilize the whole ecosystem and really, you know, like slow down a little bit next releases and versions. That would be the point from me.
For me, twofold. One is standardization of the business processes would be really good between, you know, for interoperability. And number 2, I forgot about it. And number 2 is to standardize capabilities, business capabilities that are measurable and tangible. I think so. These are the 2 key things that MEF should actually drive down to.
I think we should put a much bigger North Star, 500 or 1,000, truly scale the ecosystem. And in order to do so, we have to take the subjectivity out of what standard actually means. We have to not rely on development process. We have to be able to plug in, and there's performance and content have to be incorporated into it. And when we do, we'll find, like other standards out there, we'll truly scale.
Yeah, again, standards are the foundation for us to automate, but it doesn't need to be very difficult. I think based on where you are with your organization, there are steps that you can take in, and it doesn't have to be big steps. So maybe I will also do a little bit of advertisement for Maciej and Enxoo. Take a look at their booth. To step into that standardization, it doesn't require a major investment. You can choose your own path, and you can start with something simple and build upon it. And I think with the right platform, it can help you to get started very quickly and evolve over time as well. So take a look at the demo booth. I think you will find it very exciting.
Well, thank you, everyone. What I would like to do is turn over questions to the audience. Are there any burning questions for the panelists? And beyond that, I will also say, again, talking to these guys, they're passionate about this. If you come to their booths, if you catch them over coffee or a beer, I am sure you will be able to either make your point or learn their perspective. But anyone have a question? And I can't see very well. Yes, sir. Yes, right there in the black shirt.
I spent 10 years working in the roaming industry. What I'm hearing and seeing right now is what that industry went through 15 years ago. Just the challenge of meeting the companies that are open to business, challenge of integrating, working the relationships both at a technical and commercial level. And I think it's a comment rather than a question. I think MEF can take some lessons from the GSM Association in facilitating the building of the relationships between the communities, as well as that exchange of technical information and forums. And I think it's not really a question, just a statement.
It's a great comment.
It is. Anyone else? And wave your hand because it really is hard to see up here. Obviously, you did a great job because you answered every question and every question that might have come. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.